Brussels, March 22, 1990. The residence Cherry Moon. A man lies face down on the doormat of apartment 6. He has been shot 5 times in the back of the head and neck with a suppressed 7.65 millimeter pistol. He is dead before he hits the floor. The police who arrive on the scene find a tableau of professional violence. There is no sign of a struggle. There are no witnesses. And most tellingly, in the dead man's pocket, they find $20,000 in cash, untouched. This was not a robbery. This was a liquidation. The dead man is Dr. Gerald Bull. To some, he was the greatest artillery engineer of the 20th century, a man who understood the aerodynamics of ballistics better than anyone alive. To others, he was a mad scientist in the truest, most tragic sense of the term. He lies dead in a Belgian hallway because he tried to build a gun, not a rifle, not a howitzer, but a cannon so massive that it defied the laws of modern warfare. This is the story of Project Babylon. It is the story of a Faustian bargain struck in the deserts of Iraq. It is a forensic analysis of the engineering behind the world's largest artillery piece, and the shadow war fought by Mossad to stop it. To understand the gun, you must understand the man. Gerald Bull was not born a mercenary. He was born a dreamer. In the 1960s, he was a celebrated academic, a man who looked at the expensive, complex, explosive rockets of NASA and saw a crude inefficiency. Bull's obsession was high-altitude research. He championed a theory that challenged the entire rocketry establishment: gun-launched orbital insertion. Bull's thesis was economic and physical. Conventional rockets must carry their own oxidizer and fuel, accounting for over 85% of their launch mass. A gun-launched projectile leaves its propulsion system on the ground. Bull calculated, perhaps optimistically, that he could reduce the cost of orbital insertion from thousands of dollars per kilogram to as little as $600. This wasn't theory. He proved it. In the 1960s, under the High Altitude Research Project, or HARP, Bull welded 2 16-inch naval guns together on the island of Barbados. The sabot acts as a piston, filling the bore to capture the full pressure of the expanding gas. Upon exiting the muzzle, the sabot discards, leaving the slender aerodynamic projectile to fly with minimal drag. Bull achieved muzzle velocities in excess of 7,000 feet per second, reaching altitudes of 180 kilometers. But in the late 1960s, the funding stopped. HARP was canceled. To the government, it was a line item. To Gerald Bull, it was a betrayal. He became bitter, paranoid, desperate. His search for funding led him to his first deal with the devil, South Africa. He sold them the ballistics designed for the GC-45, the father of the lethal G5 howitzer. For this, he was arrested by the United States. Prison changed him. When he emerged in 1980, his moral compass didn't just break, he threw it away. Bull would defend his choices with one haunting sentence: "Better I take the money and use it for a just cause than the industry keep it and use it to advertise a poisonous product. It is money from the devil, but I will use it to reach the stars." The year is 1988. Saddam Hussein's treasury is empty, but his ambition is infinite. He needs a force multiplier. Enter Gerald Bull. Bull offered Saddam a seduced proposition. He promised to revolutionize the Iraqi artillery corps. But this was a deception. Bull likely viewed the weaponization as a necessary evil, a box to be checked on a funding application. He believed he was using Saddam's money to build a spaceship, gambling that he could launch a satellite before he was forced to fire a shot in anger. It was the ultimate engineer's arrogance, believing the machine matters more than the master. To the Iraqi Strategic Command, however, Project Babylon was a weapon. A gun capable of placing a 2,000-kilogram payload into orbit could theoretically deliver a warhead anywhere in the Middle East. Once fired, it is strictly mathematics. It is unstoppable. Project Babylon was not a single gun. It was a tiered program. To achieve the physics-defying goal of a 1,000-kilometer range, Bull had to push metallurgy into the danger zone. The first step was the prototype, Baby Babylon, built at a secret facility in the Jabal Hamrain Mountains. Baby Babylon's specifications: bore diameter 350 millimeters, barrel length 46 meters, propellant super-slotted cylinders. They didn't just use bags of powder, they used propellant charges the size of oil drums, stacked like poker chips. This super-slotted geometry allowed the propellant to burn with perfect consistency, creating a sustained pressure wave rather than a sudden explosion. But the ultimate goal was Big Babylon. This machine belongs in the realm of science fiction. Big Babylon specifications: bore diameter 1,000 millimeters, 1 meter wide, barrel length 156 meters, total weight 2,100 tons. A gun of this size created a terrifying engineering problem: recoil. The recoil force was calculated at 27 million pounds. Big Babylon couldn't be mounted on a vehicle. It had to be buried inside a mountain at a fixed angle, using the earth itself to absorb the kick. And this created a fatal tactical flaw. Because it was buried in a mountain, it had a fixed azimuth. It could not turn. It could not track targets. It was not a sniper rifle. It was a shotgun. You could not aim at a specific building in Tel Aviv. But with a biological or chemical payload, accuracy becomes irrelevant. You do not need to hit the Knesset. You only need to hit the city limits. It was a weapon of area denial. However, the G-force created a nuclear paradox. To accelerate a projectile to orbital velocity in a 156-meter barrel, the acceleration forces exceed 10,000 Gs. While the Americans possessed hardened nuclear artillery shells capable of surviving this shock, Iraq did not. A standard implosion core would be crushed inside the barrel, causing a fizzle. It was a terrifying weapon, but perhaps not a nuclear one. How do you build a 2,100-ton gun in a country that can't even mill high-grade steel? You outsource it. Bull contracted the finest steel mills in England, Sheffield Forgemasters and Walter Summers. He told them he was building a petrochemical plant, specifically a polymerization of polyethylene facility, coded as PC2. Bull was clever. He didn't label the parts gun barrel. He labeled them high-pressure vessel flanges. The engineers on the floor might have had their suspicions, but the bureaucrats stamping the export papers saw only boring industrial terminology. It was a lie hidden in plain sight. But there was one component that no petrochemical engineer could explain away: the breech. Petrochemical pipes are bolted together. They are static. But Bull needed a mechanism to load a 1-ton shell into the back of the gun. He ordered a massive, sliding block of steel. In artillery design, this is the obturator. It must slide open to accept the charge, then close and seal hermetically against 70,000 psi of explosive gas. A petrochemical pipe has no need for a quick opening sliding door. The moment those drawings were finalized, the oil pipe excuse was technically dead. But while the British debated the definition of a steel tube, the state of Israel was watching. Mossad viewed Project Babylon not as a science experiment, but as an existential threat. They started with lohamap psychologiat, psychological warfare. Bull would return to his apartment in Brussels to find things wrong. Furniture moved. A vase rotated. Nothing stolen, just enough to say, "We are here." Bull ignored it. He was arrogant. He didn't realize that in the eyes of Mossad, he had crossed the line from scientist to enemy combatant. March 22, 1990. The sun sets over Brussels. Gerald Bull returns to the Residence Cherry Moon. He takes the elevator to the 6th floor. As he steps out, the hallway light is flickering. It's been tampered with. He walks toward his door. He fumbles for his keys. Behind him, the shadows move. 5 shots, 7.65 millimeters, a small caliber chosen to bounce inside the skull. Bull falls. The assassins verify the kill. They see the $20,000 in his pocket. They leave it. The assassination was the cut that severed the head of the snake. Without Gerald Bull, the Iraqis had the hardware, but they lacked the genius to integrate it. 3 weeks later, British customs raided the docks at Teesport. The petrochemical lie evaporated. Project Babylon was dead. After the Gulf War, UN inspectors found the components in the desert. They didn't study them. They destroyed them. They cut the barrels, blew up the breech blocks, and incinerated the super-slotted propellant. Project Babylon remains one of the most audacious engineering feats ever attempted. It was a machine built on the razor's edge of physics and morality. Dr. Gerald Bull was a visionary. He was right about the ballistics. He was right about the economics of spaceflight. But he was fatally wrong about the world. He believed that science was a shield. He thought he could sup with the devil and leave the table without paying the bill. In the end, the Supergun did fire one shot. It didn't hit Israel. It didn't reach the stars. It was a ricochet that killed its creator.